Hello again, everyone. This is the Metroidvania Guru, and this is part 4 of our ongoing definitive ultimate tier list. Normally, I have some long, drawn-out intro. I'm just going to skip all that. Just know that I use the picker, everything's picked at random, and we're going to get started. But before we get started, I do want to make a slight amendment here. So, recently I dropped a video for Tokitori. I'll put a card up top if you want to take a look at that. And having really played through the game and did another deep dive into it, I really want to move it down to the F tier. So I'm going to do that now. I'll put it above Necrosphere because Necrosphere is just absolutely trash. But I felt pretty bad having Tokitori above the original Metroid. That was kind of a crime, and some people called me out on it, and I appreciate that. So thanks for that. I can't think of any other amendments right now, but if anything comes up, please let me know in the comments or reach out to me. I can be persuaded if the argument is sound. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to get right into our next 5. All right, first up we have The Night Witch. This game is odd. I think I liked it. You know, it's been a while since I played it, and it's tough because it's like I liked it and I didn't like it at the same time. I know that seems weird. We'll get into it. So let's start with the pros. I have here that it's different and it's innovative, which is, you know, correct technically. That doesn't mean it's a great thing, but it's kind of a cool thing that they try to take a Metroidvania, the Metroidvania formula, and stick it with deck building mechanics as well as bullet hell mechanics. It doesn't really work in my opinion, but it was kind of cool, and that's really what drove me to it. I was like, oh, okay, it's a twin stick shooter, Metroidvania, whatever. Yeah, I was down for that. So yeah, I'll give it a pro for being innovative and different. My next pro for this one is that the sprites are cute and bright. There's a lot of hand-drawn stuff in this game, so the sprites are adorable. They look crisp and good. The atmosphere, all the biomes, all the backgrounds, hand-drawn. Really, really cool stuff. And that brings me directly to the third pro I have here, is that the world does look great, and it's a beautiful game, and the music's absolutely fantastic. There's a lot to really like about the presentation and the overall atmosphere of this game, and I think it's worth checking out. And if you do decide to check it out, you'll find that it has excellent world building, which is my next bullet point here. I think the way that the game builds itself up, you know, its world, its characters, everything, just really makes for a really cool place to explore and to live in. And that brings me, I don't have this as a bullet point on here, but I'll go ahead and say it, is I liked some of the characters in this game. I did not like the main character. Her name was Rain, I do believe. And we'll get into that. But some of the characters in this game were really cool, but the protagonist herself, not so much. My next pro for this game is it has a lot of accessibility options. And you won't find it under accessibility per se. They're actually cheats. And you have to like input like different runes or sigils or whatever in a specific order. Think of like, you know how like in Mortal Kombat, you had like kind of the slot machines before the fight that you could put in some cheats? It's kind of like that, except it's in a pause menu. And I don't know where you get these cheats. I just looked them up online while I was playing, and I actually activated a couple of them because I just was not digging this game. I actually got, I think, to the final biome in the game, and I was just so done. This game just really got on my last nerve. And when we get to the cons, I'll get into all that. But I actually turned on infinite mana and invincibility, and I just went through the rest of the game just because I wanted to see the ending, because the story was actually pretty cool, and which is interesting because I don't have that as a pro here. I guess that was just part of world building, but I did like the narrative in this game, and I thought what they were doing was really cool with the whole linking system where you basically have a press conference where you're talking to everyone in Dungeonitis. That's the name of the world that you're in, because everyone lives underground, because the sky and the sun is broken up top. It's a very environmentalist game, so a lot of that stuff and that theming is pretty heavy-handed for what that's worth. So anyway, I feel like I'm going a little off topic here, but I did want to say that the game does do a lot of things really well when it comes, you know, to like the Metroidvania formula. Just like mentioned a little bit ago with the links, there's a pretty good progression system in here. A lot of it has to do with that linking that I've been talking about, where you have this press conference and You talk to everyone in Dungeonitis, and you can either lie or you can tell the truth. If you lie, you get a better Link score, which is your EXP, and you can get your levels up. And then if you don't lie, you tell the truth, a lot of the times you're going to like either get 0 Link or just a little bit of Link. I don't think the linking contributes to anything other than leveling you up, because I don't think it contributes to the true ending. And of course, when it comes to other aspects of being a Metroidvania, it nails it with the atmosphere and with the narrative, which I've kind of spoken on a little bit already. But it also does do some pretty good Metroidvania tropes, like it teases some secret doors early on, which I really like in a Metroidvania. There's a dark secret in the underground area, so you know how that is. Like, the deeper underground you go in a Metroidvania, the better the secrets and stuff, right? This nails that trope. It has ability gating. I can't recall every single bit, but I know you get like a sword that can hit anvils to open up stuff, and then you get like a dash, if you will. It's weird to call it that. I guess it is a dash, it's an air dash, because the way Rain moves, she flies. It's 360 degrees, so this kind of air dash teleports through stuff, so it's pretty cool. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a true ending to this game. And with that, we have all the pros out of the way, so let's move on to the cons. There's a lot. I didn't really like this game that much, but the first thing I want to talk about is the enemies in the game. The enemies, in my opinion, were way too tanky. And I don't know if it's because, like, the regular attack that Rain has is just trash. Like, it doesn't do a lot of damage, and the rate of fire is really, really small. But when you level up, and that's what the linking does, as well as actually finding, like, these apples across the map, you can level up Rain, and you can level up her witch side or her knight side. The knight side does HP and the rate of fire and the damage on your regular shooting attack, while the witch side will give you more mana and will make your magic hurt more and stuff like that. I don't know, man. The enemies, they just were really tanky, and I didn't have a whole lot of fun actually fighting in this game. I thought it was pretty miserable, and we'll get into that here in a second. Next. So I just really didn't like the combat. It looks good. There's a lot of I don't know, stuff everywhere, and there's a lot of stuff to see, and it looks I guess it looks good, but in practice it's not. It has this like deck building mechanic to it, which is super random, and they mix that with bullet hell. And the reason this is an issue, several reasons, but I think the biggest one is, like, you create this deck, and you can see the cards that you have in the bottom right corner, but it's a bullet hell, right? And so you're getting attacked all the time in every direction. So you need to focus on what's going on there. But the game demands that you also pay attention to the deck that you have in the bottom right, which is randomly filled in with cards. So you have to kind of break your concentration or your focus to look at that. And then a lot of times I ended up getting hit because my eyes are shifting all over the place. Maybe you won't have that issue. I certainly did. And I was like, oh God, I hate this so much. Another thing that really bugged me about the combat in this game is I felt that mana never dropped, or it hardly ever dropped. Magic was really the only way to deal damage in this game because, like I said earlier, the regular shots were just so weak. And I got Rain leveled up pretty well, and I went the knight side because I wanted my regular attacks to hurt. But they just I was never satisfied with the damage that your regular attacks did. And then the magic attacks required mana, and I was always low on mana. It didn't drop very well. And that's the thing, if you level up her witch side, mana will drop at a higher rate, like 20%, 25%, as you level up. But I don't know, man. Splitting between the knight and the witch side, I didn't feel like it was working for me, because it's like I wanted to do more damage in both sections, because you need that magic to do real damage, but your regular attack is old reliable. You need that too. But because mana was dropped infrequently, at least in my playthrough, like, it was really tough to use magic or use your cards. My next con here is that it's not really a Metroidvania. I mean, it is. It nails every bit of the Metroidvania formula, except that it's not a platformer. It is a bullet hell. It's a shmup, sort of. I'm gonna count it as a Metroidvania. I know that seems odd, but it nails everything else that a Metroidvania has to do. There's no, honest to God platforming in it, but there is dodging, there is maneuverability and things of that nature. So I can put it on a spectrum. I can at least acknowledge that it's more Metroidvania than it's not, and sometimes that's good enough for me. So I do kind of consider this a Metroidvania, but I can see how someone could say no, this is not a Metroidvania. But it hits all those Metroidvania formula aspects. It hits a lot of the tropes. So I'm gonna go ahead and consider it a Metroidvania. That being said, exploration was an absolute pain in this game. I hated it because Rain moved so slowly. Backtracking was just terrible, and so whenever I had to backtrack, I always was like, I'd rather just not. And I didn't. And I missed so much in the game because backtracking was just such a pain. Like, I booted this game back up just to kind of refresh myself on it. And I found so much easy crap that I missed when I was just messing around. I was like, oh crap, all I had to do was just backtrack here and I could have got this. I had no desire to do it because I hated how she moved and how slowly she moved. And fast travel is very limited. You could move from like the central, I guess, hub, which is like the hanging castle, I think is what it's called. And then there were like 4 other places that you could fast travel to. And I do believe all of these places, they're not interconnected. You have to fast travel to them. So that's kind of a hit against its Metroidvania-ness as well. But I didn't find it too big of an issue. Just like, I would complete a biome and then I would just be done with it. I was like, I'm not ever going back here ever again. I don't care. So there's that. Yeah, my next point is that she moved too slow. We kind of got into that. And my very last con here is that there are some odd character conflict fails. I didn't really know how to put this, but like, I did not like Rain. I don't want to say she was a Mary Sue, because she isn't perfect and she gets better and better throughout and she grows slightly. But she's as close to a Mary Sue as you could possibly get, and it's frustrating. And I think one of the things that really got on my nerves was, and you're gonna have to forgive me because I don't remember all the details, but her husband had to fight this other infernal, this demon guy. So her husband's an infernal demon, and this other infernal demon is going to fight him, and they have like some honor bound code. Think of like, the Klingons, right, in Star Trek. And so he has to fight this fight, but of course there's a loophole that states something like, if there's a family member that wants to take your spot, they can. And Rain takes advantage of this, and her husband is just like, okay, and walks away. And it's like, really? He had been saying like how honor bound he is to do this fight, and then all of a sudden she's like, I'll do it. And he's like, okay, bye, and leaves. Like, I would like to have seen some actual conflict there where, I don't know, like, he doesn't want to because he is honor bound, so he wants to do the fight, but then she like makes a portal and teleports him away because she can do that. And then later on they get into an argument because like, you took that away from me, and she's like, but I had to, whatever. Some kind of cool conflict like that between characters would have been great, but you never see anything like that. And so there's a lot of decisions that happen where it seems like it's more convenient than it should be, because there should be conflict in whatever decision that they make. That's just me, I'm a narrative guy, but I just thought that was kind of odd. I was like, really? He's just gonna like turn over like that and just let her do it? So it was just weird. All right, with all that being said, where would I place Night Witch on this list? I would not put it as an F, because it did a lot of things very competently. D feels good to me. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it as a D, because it was so torturous to actually play this game, and I did not want to actually end it properly. I just used those cheat codes and was like, I'm just going to plow through this. The final boss for the true ending was honestly ridiculous. I don't even know how anyone could beat it without cheating. It's that hard, and a lot of the fights in the Night Witch can be difficult. It's a challenging game, but I think it's challenging for all the wrong reasons. You got the deck building with the bullet hell, so your focus is all over the place. Not enough mana to really do anything. So I don't know. Maybe I played the game wrong, but it's a Metroidvania, and I'm pretty good at Metroidvanias. I play them a lot, and to think that I played this game wrong is more like, no, I think you designed it wrong. So maybe that's a bad thing to think. But I'm thinking we have ourselves a mid to high D with the Night Witch. Not a terrible game, but it's a tough one to recommend for Metroidvania fans for sure. Next up, we have Batbarian, the Testament of the Primordials. This, I'm gonna throw it out there, and this may surprise you, but This is technically a puzzle platformer, but I like it a lot. And I know that seems very odd to say if you've followed my channel. I just do not like puzzle platforming in my Metroidvanias. However, Batbarian has this kind of charm to it and did something, man. I don't know what it was, but it hooked me and I played it till the end. However, it's not the greatest game ever. It's not even a great Metroidvania. I was really invested in the story. And this might as well be called the accessibility episode when it comes to the tier list, because this one also has some accessibility options that are blatantly called accessibility that I decided to turn on near the end of the game because I was like, I just want to be done with it. And we'll get to that as we go through the pros. So the first pro I have on here is that the narrative hooked me. Yeah, it's an interesting narrative. It has this kind of like framing where it's like your barbarian is telling a story to somebody, and so the entire story, the entire game can be seen as like either a literal interpretation or he's embellishing. And we'll get to that in a second, but I really liked its narrative. A lot of the story is told through diary entries and things that you find, very, very basic kind of Soulsvania. This isn't a Soulsvania game, but very Soulsvania / Souls-like in that aspect when it comes to storytelling. And it hooked me. I was actually really interested, which is weird because and this will take us to our next point. The game has a lot of humor in it, but it works because of that framing I talked about, how it's a story being told by the barbarian to a friend, and of course he might embellish some things. But yeah, the humor in this game is actually okay. I typically don't like a lot of humor in video games unless they do it well. And for some reason, I don't think it should work in this game, but it does. Because this game has some very serious tones to it. But man, some of the dialogue options in the game are just so funny. And there's a lot of dialogue options in it. I don't think any of them are consequential. I think it's mostly just for gags and stuff. But like, there's just a lot. So there's story to this game. There's narrative. There's a lot of characters, and a lot of them are talking. Most of it's humorous. And I don't know, it worked for me. It just did. I don't know how to explain it other than maybe it's because of the narrative hook where it's being framed as a story being told. But I don't know, it worked for me. My next pro is the characters. I did like the characters in this game. There was the main barbarian. Man, I can't even remember his name, or her. I think you can choose either. I don't think they actually give them a name. But then there's Pip, which is the barbarian's bat, which is like this magical bat, and it's just awesome. I'm a sucker for games where you have a small flying companion. I think this stems back to when I played the original Lunar with Null. God, I loved that game. I still love that game, and I think Null was just so much fun. But then you have other characters like Twigs, who's like this rogue / thief. You got this wizard, and just even some of the bosses are funny. There's like this ghost boss. It's super funny as you fight it. So yes, the characters in this game are pretty cool and add to the humor and to the seriousness. I mean, there's the game is all over the place on tone, but it meshes for some reason, and I wish I could articulate why, but I swear it does. My next pro is the pet bat, Pip. Kind of talked about it just for a second there, but I always like games where you have a companion, especially in Metroidvanias. They're supposed to have this sense of like isolationism, but that's like not my favorite. I know it sounds weird from someone who calls himself the Metroidvania guru, and I'm cool with feeling isolated in my video games. Sometimes it's awesome. But a lot of the times I'd rather just have like a companion or something. And this game does that, not just with the bat, but with some of the characters. They can follow you around too. And personally, I love stuff like that. But this bat is pretty awesome. It does a lot of things. It's really your main source of ability gating in this game, because you got to remember this is a Metroidvania. And the bat can like shine a light. It can turn on fire. It can turn into ice. And of course, all of those transformations can then do things like ice can freeze people and you can jump on them. Fire burns stuff like vines, and can light torches and things like that. There's other things that you can do with this bat, like you can like throw like a fruit and then the bat will chase it, and so it can like hit switches and stuff for you, or it can attack enemies depending on the type of fruit that you have. There's a lot of really cool things going on using this bat. The next pro I have here says clever boss fights. Which is cool because like the game doesn't feel all the best when it comes to combat and platforming. Like I really didn't like the jump in this game. It felt like it went too high and dropped too fast, and there wasn't a whole lot of, I don't know, it didn't control very well to me. Like it wasn't terrible, but it could have been better. And so when it comes to boss fights, they lean more on the puzzling aspect than the actual like platforming and combat, which I think was a good move, even though it's a barbarian game and barbarians aren't known for their cleverness. But yeah, I really can't think of a single boss fight in the game that I didn't really enjoy. Like there's one where you gotta like drop stalactites on like someone's head, and then there's another one where you're fighting like I don't know, I think it's a necromancer or something like that, and you gotta like shine a light on it from your bat. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do in these boss fights, and a lot of them are pretty clever. The next pro that I have is exploration. I thought it was okay. Backtracking in this game wasn't that bad because you could open a lot of shortcuts, and there was fast travel between campsites once you get like a specific like teleportation rune. And I always like fast travel in my Metroidvanias. I know there are some people out there like, no, it destroys fast travel. It destroys the backtracking aspect and the exploration. Like, whatever. You guys can think that. But I'm an adult. I like as much time saved as possible, and fast travel helps out with that. So because of this fast travel, backtracking wasn't so bad. The only bad thing I can say about exploration is maybe in the con section, but it's just like you just want to explore, but every single screen has a freaking puzzle that you got to solve. So it's you know how I am when it comes to puzzle platforming, and this got old real quick for me, but maybe not for you. But yeah, well, let's move on. The next pro I have is that it does have multiple endings. It has a true ending, and then within that true ending, there's variations, but it's all whether or not your friends stay alive, essentially. So I put true ending with friendship garnish. So you can get a bad ending, or you can get a true ending with a true boss fight, and then you can have your friends either survive or die based on your actions during this last sequence. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. And of course, having a true ending and all of that cool narrative and stuff coming together. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. And then my last pro here is the accessibility options. You can just go into the menu and you can just crank everything up. Like you can be like, enemies barely damage you. You do a lot more damage. Probably the big thing for me in here is that this game is so freaking dark. Like that's part of the mechanics of the game, is that you really can't see anything. Pip is your only light, and you can like turn on torches or activate switches to turn on these crystals that give you light or whatnot. But a lot of it is just, it's so dark. So I went to the accessibility options, just cranked it up all the way and turned that darkness off. I had enough of the game. The puzzling was just getting on my nerves. Again, and we'll get into that, especially here when we get into the cons. But there was a point where I was completely done. And I'm like, let's just turn these accessibility options on because I'm invested in the story. I want to see the end of it. But I'm so done with all these stupid puzzles. Because a lot of the puzzles, and I think I might get into these of the cons, they're not tough. They are, the solutions are easy to find, but it's all about the execution. And a lot of that execution is hindered because of either multitasking, because the game asks you to multitask a lot, or because you just can't see crap. So I was just like, you know what, I'm done. I'm just turning the lights on, and I was able to see the entirety of the room, solve everything in like a second, and then, take forever to execute because of all the ridiculous multitasking. But we'll get into that with the cons, so let's move to the cons. First con I have here we already talked about. Everything is dark. It is very dark in this game. Next, jumping felt bad. Made platforming more difficult than it should be. Talked about that one. Moving on from that. And I think this is where we start getting into the puzzles. I said puzzles get old. Every single room has one. It's a 10-hour long game. Imagine going from every single room and having to do a puzzle after puzzle after puzzle. It got obnoxious. And then the next point says puzzles are more about execution than cleverness. Kind of talked about that. And I put in here that I got hand cramps because of the multitasking. So the way that the buttons are laid out, and you could probably switch the buttons. I can't remember. But like, I would have to aim, jump, shoot, and just be situationally aware. Enemies could be coming, a platform could be moving, there was just a lot of these puzzles, and it got old real fast. I can see a lot of people looking at this and be like, I don't want to do this multitasking crap, and I totally get it, but yeah, it can get tough. My next con, I don't know if it's nitpicky, but it really bugged me because there's a twist at the end of the game where you learn that a great majority of the game that you've been playing turns out to be a dream, right? And so you wake up in the real cavern that you're in. I know it's kind of spoilery, but I apologize. Probably should have said that beforehand. But yeah, you learn that it's all a dream, then explore the real cave that you're in, which is much, much smaller. I didn't like this other than, it was all a dream. It always usually sucks. but it just uncontextualized the map, you know, and you hear that word a lot where it's like, oh, I have a new ability. This recontextualizes the world around me, which basically just means, oh, now I have to take a look at the world differently and see how I can interact with it differently, right? Well, when you wake up and you're in this like brand new-ish cavern, basically that old cavern that you were in is completely gone. And so you're just like, wow, okay, so I got this whole other cavern to go through, and that sucks. I don't know. It kind of knocked the wind out of the sails, especially because we're at the climax of the game now, and this is where I go to my next con. I say pacing after the twist is just really bad. You still have I want to say 2 more hours of puzzles after you have this perspective changing revelation, right? Like, oh my gosh, it was all a dream and blah, blah, blah. But now, instead of going directly into the climax, you still have 2 more hours of puzzles. And maybe some people like that, oh, there's more game. But I was just like, dude, I'm done. Oh my God. I think this is probably where I turned on the accessibility options, because I was just like, I just want to see the end. And I was expecting the climax. Everything led up to where this is supposed to be the climax. And then it was like, nah, you got 2 more hours of puzzles to do. And I'm like, nope. So I just turned on those accessibility options and got to the end. I just find that frustrating when games do that. It's like, here we are going to the climax, but first, do all this crap. I'm like, no, man, just let me go. Just let me go, man. And my last con is that leveling up in this game is a joke. It doesn't help at all. You can level up traditionally as you're killing people or things in the cavern. You will get EXP, you'll level up, and when you level up, it starts like a slot machine, and you can increase 3 stats based on how you stop your slot or whatever. But the way that your defense and your health and stuff is scaled, you get 3 points each time. You can get up to a max of 9 per level, but it really is inconsequential because the ratio is just so bad. You have 200 defense and 100 attack, right? Starting out. And I personally didn't see a difference between just leveling up nothing but attacks throughout the game. It just felt inconsequential. And thus, that also makes a lot of the upgrades that you find junk. You get HP defense and awareness stats increased. Awareness actually makes your field of view larger. So that's probably the one you should be leveling up, to be honest with you. Or just go to the accessibility options and turn that darkness off. But yeah, the only good thing to find while exploring was other than abilities and stuff, would be you can increase your satchel to carry more rocks. Take that for what it's worth. I just thought leveling up was absolutely a joke. And so with all that, where would I place Batbarian? Again, I did enjoy the game up until that really bad pacing part. That was just, oh my God, I was just completely done with the game. So yeah, it's not a bad game. It is a puzzle platformer, but it's also a legit platformer. So it's a Metroidvania through and through. Gosh, I would give it a C. Probably not right there, but yeah, I'd say it's better than Overlord, only because it hits more the Metroidvania tropes, and I was actually invested in the game's narrative and stuff. But yeah, this is a low to mid Metroidvania, and I think that's being generous, because I put a lot of emphasis on narrative and whether or not you're truly hitting those Metroidvania aspects. But yeah, there you go, Batbarian. Next up is Moonscars. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, although I probably will because I talk too much, but the reason is because I've already done a video on this. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a card up in the top there. You can go check that out if you haven't already. So Moonscars. I guess my first pro here is I really liked the combat in the game. It's very parry heavy, and the parrying is actually really easy to pull off. At least I thought it was. The enemies are very, what's the word I'm looking for? They telegraph everything really, really well, so it's easy to do the parries in this game. And I found combat to be fast-paced and just a lot of fun. Using the witcheries to hit things and jumping all over the place, dashing, parrying. It felt really good. A lot of the combat is arena-based, where it's you walk into a room and doors will shut, and then you're kind of stuck with these enemies. But just like Rorschach, I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me. And it always felt great to just completely body all these monsters and crap. I also like the Ichor healing in the game. I think I talk about this in my video, but it's like the healing is like 1-for-1, where it's like you have an Ichor bar, and think of it as kind of like your spirit vessel from Hollow Knight, and it fills up as you attack, and then you hold the healing button and you'll start healing. But again, it's not like, in Hollow Knight it took an entire vessel to heal X amount, while in Moonscars you just hold the button and you heal as long as you hold the button. Let go of the button, then you can move on, right? So I thought that was kind of cool. The reason is because it kept battles fast paced. Like, say, again, going back to Hollow Knight, in order to give players a chance to heal, they had to design bosses to have these kind of lulls in their attacks so that the player can be like, this is my time to heal, right? While Moonscars doesn't really give you that option. Like, these enemies and these bosses are aggressive pretty much the whole time, and so you just got to heal when you can for little bits at a time if you got to. So I thought that was kind of cool, and it kept things fast-paced. I found Moonscars' exploration to be rewarding. There wasn't like a whole lot to find in the game. You could find like some amulets, you could find exquisite earrings, which were that was a cool mechanic. There was like stat increases you can find in each biome. It was like health, ichor, and damage, so you wanted to make sure you find those. I really did like the NPCs in the game. There were a couple of them, and I can't remember their names. There's the cat, and then there's the little girl. I think the little girl's name was Adelinka, and they were just weird, and they were just all over the place, and it added this really kind of surrealness to the world, and I really enjoyed their company, if you will. And the last thing I have here is fast travel. Fast travel is very simple in this game. It's, you get these dark mirrors and you can transport between the dark mirrors. Again, these are kind of like your bonfires, right? And so fast travel was easy and it was helpful. The only thing I would say, and this isn't a positive or a negative, it just is that there's really not a whole lot of reason to backtrack in this game. There are some like side quests that may require some backtracking, but if you're observant enough in the biomes that you enter, you're going to pretty much find everything that you need. There's not a whole lot of ability gating in this game. Her name is Grey Irma. She initially starts with everything that you would ever need. Like, she starts with an air dash, a regular dash. She has she doesn't have a double jump, but she has a wall jump that she can just keep scaling. So yeah, right out the gate, she's like perfect. There's only like 2 or 3 ability gaining things in the game. It's like a super dash. You can open up flesh walls when you first get a witchery, because some of these witcheries can open up doors, so that can be broken. So yeah, that's not a whole lot of ability gain, but it is in the game, so it's a Metroidvania. I found Moonscar's narrative to be intriguing, yet it was a little convoluted and contrived. Like the whole thing about the God, I can't even remember their names now. But there was like an elite group that Grey Irma was a part of. It was 4 humans and 4 Claiborne. I'm not going to get into all that. You can watch my video and all that. But it's just like why would the sculptor mislead them, give them bad information so they'd kill each other? Because he knew one of them was the integral vessel, and I don't know. It seemed too contrived and just weird. It worked, but it was it was dumb in my opinion. Another thing about the narrative that I would probably put, I don't know, I would put it in the cons. I have it in the pros, but I think it's mainly a con, is that you get a lot of the narrative by selling these memory molds. And you get these memory molds when you beat a boss or there's some sort of big event that happened in the game. And you got to sell these molds, and then the person you sell them to gives you like a lot of lore. I refused to sell these molds because I thought that you could do something with them, but no, they're intended to be sold so you can learn lore. So I'm going to say that's my bad, not the game's, because it tells you to sell them. But I was like, I'm not going to listen to you, you liar game. But no, you're supposed to sell them, so whatever. Another pro I have is the atmosphere and the art style. It's not my favorite, but it is unique and it is really cool. And I thought it added a lot to the game. It's kind of like impressionistic, like they smeared the paint and everything just kind of like smears together in this monochrome kind of vistas, right? And then there's like accents of red that pop out. It reminds me of like Sin City or Schindler's List in that respect, where it's like you can see the red. So that was kind of cool. Continuing with this being the accessibility episode, there is some accessibility in this game in the form of gear. There's a lot of OP, borderline broken gear that you can put in this game. And when I say gear, it's like you don't get weapons and armor in the game, but you do get accessories, and you can have like 3 or 4 accessories equipped. And some of these accessories are absolutely broken. There's one that mitigates a ton of damage, making it to where, you know, these boss fights are very trivial, but you sacrifice movement speed. So if you want to use it, I would suggest using it only against the bosses. Don't use it while you're exploring. That'd be a bad move in my opinion. And then you can couple that with this other amulet that basically, it makes you invincible while you're healing, which is like, that's so broken. You equip those 2 things and you've beaten the game. This game is renowned for being challenging, and I'll get to that here in a sec. But with these particular pieces of gear, this game is an absolute walkthrough, man. It's so simple. But that does bring me to my next pro. I just put patches. This game, upon release, was not viewed upon kindly. It was considered obnoxious, way too hard, way too punitive, and unforgiving. There were a couple of big patches that came out for this game that assuaged these complaints, if you will. And now the game is much more palatable. So I would recommend, if you went into Moonscars at launch and you're like, wow, this is obnoxious, I hate this game, I would recommend you trying it now post patches, because it is way better now. Like, I didn't play it when it was first launched because I had, like, the reviews were really bad, as well as it came with a game-breaking bug that they eventually obviously fixed. But yeah, I waited a while before I played this one. And I don't regret it. I really do like this game a lot. That being said, let's move on to the cons. So there's not a lot of enemies in this game. You'll see most, if not all, of the enemies at the midpoint of this game. I think this game's like 8 hours. I can't recall. But yeah, like you can get like 4 or 5 hours in and you've seen every enemy in the game. They do some things like give them like super armor or, you know, whatnot. But yeah, you'll see every enemy pretty early in this game, which is kind of a letdown, but it's not like a game breaker or anything like that, or it's fine. The game also has this weird roguelike element called Spite. I wasn't a big fan of that. I don't know why they did that. I'd rather just like have like moves and use them as opposed to losing my moves when I died or whatever. Yeah, this Spite level thing was kind of weird, but it worked in tandem with this moon hunger mechanic as well. And I don't want to get into all of that. You can watch my video. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think it added a whole lot to the game. And it added this kind of randomness that I do not like in my Metroidvanias. I thought progression was a big letdown in this game. You can't really level up Grey Irma. You get bone powder, which is the game's currency, and you can buy spells, and that's pretty much it. You can also use the bone powder to buy amulets and some other things, but like you can't level up Grey Irma. You can only find those 3 stat increasing things in each biome, and that's it. And I thought that was kind of a letdown. I always love gear, like different swords and different armors and accessories and stuff. The game does have accessories, but there's not a whole lot of customization for Grey Irma. I think you can have like 2 spells equipped at any one time. That was kind of a letdown. That really, when it comes to progression and using that bone powder, it's really just to buy spells. My next con was ability gating. Kind of talked about that. There's not a whole lot of ability gating in the game. There's like 3 skills that you get, and that's it. Everything else, Grey Irma just moves exactly how you'd want your combatant to move, right? So she has dodging already, air dashing, and all kinds of crap. So yeah, ability gating in this game is like, there seriously might be like 3 or 4 places. So it's not terrible, but it is kind of, I don't know, more boring, I suppose. I don't know. And then my last 2 points is that there's only one ending, and then many of the side quests felt useless. I go into this into my video, but basically there's the one ending, and that sucks because I like multiple endings and a true ending. And there were so many side quests that I thought that at some point these side quests would be relevant toward a true ending. Like there's one where you take this clump of clay and you go down to the very bottom of the map, and we all know in Metroidvanias, the more you go down, the scarier things get and the more secrets are revealed, and that's where you want to be in a Metroidvania, man. You want to be down, and you go to the very bottom of this map to the Great Kiln or whatever it's called, and you take this lump and you turn it into a freaking living baby, and then you give this baby to the old queen, and she gives you like 3 glands, which is just like this thing in the game that you use to do stuff. At this point in the game, I had like over 50 glands, so getting like 3 more was like, okay, thanks, I'll throw it in a pile, right? I really thought this should have been a part of a true ending. I mean, I made a freaking baby, man, right? But whatever. It felt useless. and I was just frustrated. All right, and with all that out of the way, where would I put Moonscars? I don't know where my mouse is. Oh, there it is. So I think it's definitely a B, but I think it might be the lowest B. I know maybe some people wouldn't agree. The narrative, I was interested in the narrative until it started dropping the ball on some contrivances, and I really did enjoy the combat and the atmosphere. And exploration, ultimately, it was fun. It could have been better with more gear and things of that nature, but I did like to explore in this game because it looked so good, and I had my compatriots with the cat and the little girl, and I liked finding them. I don't know, it just feels like a very low B to me. Like, this game is above average, but only slightly. I think that's fair to say. Next up is Vernal Edge. I actually forgot that I did a video on this too, so I'll put that up top for you. This game was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So what did I enjoy about it? Well, let's start with the pros. First, combat. I liked it until I didn't like it, and we'll get into that here in a moment. But what about the combat was pretty cool. There was a lot of people will say it was very much like Devil May Cry, and I can see that because there is a focus on juggling in this game and poise breaking. So that's fun at first. It does get old. What's also cool about the combat is, you get these different spells, and all these different spells, I think you can equip 4 at a time. They're pretty unique, and they're a lot of fun to use, but I really liked the pulse attacks. Those were really interesting. Pulse attacks were cool because it's like you had to throw your sword or whatever to lock onto an enemy, and then once you do that, you can like press the pulse attack button plus any direction, and you're going to hit whoever you initially hit with your sword. So that lock on, right? And then this is how you heal yourself in the game. And I don't know, I just thought that was really cool, and it worked really well. Vernal has a lot of abilities in this game, and I want to say she might be the fastest Metroidvania protagonist ever. Maybe Ori comes close to how fast she gets, but I don't think so. Like, she's so fast. She has like an air dodge, and then she does this weird kick out of the dodge, and then she can literally fly for a moment. She like jumps on stuff, and like just she's very agile, and she's very quick, and she's a lot of fun to play with. So yeah, I really liked her abilities. They all added to her movement and could be used within combat, and it was just a whole lot of fun to move around with her. The next pro I have here is customization. Customizing Vernal was a lot of fun. You got like chips and discs and like memory points and all kinds of stuff. So memory points would add to your bank, right? You can have 3 memory points. You can have 4 memory points, and these memory points would basically be used for chips. And so maybe you want a chip that does something like you can parry better or something like that. You can put that chip on, and maybe it costs like 2 or 3, right? I don't think there was a limit to how many chips that you could equip. This as long as you had the memory points. And you could find those throughout exploration in the game, which brings me to the next point. I loved exploring in this game. I found it to be very rewarding, whether it be finding discs or abilities or chips or memory points, stuff like that. There was always something cool to discover in this game. Could be lore based, could be just like a specific enemy, could be a puzzle. It was just a whole lot of fun. And that'll bring me to my next point, which is like the openness in this game. It's pretty open, but it's kind of like a staggered openness. You have this really cool PS1 style world map, right? Where you fly your airship from island to island. It's just like this network of floating islands, right? And you can visit any available island as long as it's not like covered with the unreality storm. You could visit any of these islands in any way that you want, and the game kind of guides you in which island you want to go to based off of like a threat level or something like that. Like it's like 1-star threat, 2-star threat, something like that. It's a bit clunky and ham-fisted, but I found it to work. I know there's a lot of people who played this game and they got stuck very early because of its openness, really. I didn't have that issue. I don't know why you would, considering there's these like threat levels kind of telling you where you should go, but to each their own. But yeah, exploration was fun. Not only was it rewarding, but there was like a lot of secrets and hidden stuff. Like you can find like secret and hidden islands and things as you're in that world map. So I really liked it. And again, that kind of staggered openness. The game would open more and more as you progressed. And I thought that was pretty cool. I think it worked really well. I really found the narrative to be intriguing in this game. It's very much show, don't tell. And that's really good for storytelling. And what I mean by that is you just kind of dive into the action. You'll be given a lot of questions, a lot of unanswered questions, right? And they'll go unanswered for a while, but the game really doesn't care. It likes to keep you like away from that information, likes to keep you in the mystery. Things will get answered as you move forward in the game. And I like that storytelling a lot. And sticking with the narrative, I also liked the characters in this game. I thought Vernal and Chervin were a really great complement to one another. Vernal was this like hothead and was very, forthwith, right? While Chervil was more reserved and analytical, and they played off of each other, and it was really cool. And my last pro for Vernal Edge are the boss fights. I thought the boss fights in this game were really challenging and really good. I tried to play this game without parrying, because parrying is just, it's not something that I like to do. I'm more of a, dodger and counterattacker type of person. But you soon find out during the later boss fights that you have to parry, because if you do not parry, you will not get an opening to attack. And I think that starts with like her friend. I can't remember her friend's name, but once you get to him, that's when the game kind of like, the difficulty spike just increases exponentially. But you fight him later in the game, so you fight him, and then there's like a few other boss fights after him. But yes, those fights are challenging, they're tough, and you gotta parry. Even if you haven't been parrying at that point, you're gonna have to pick it up, because if you don't, you won't be able to get the attacks in. Ultimately, I really like that. Again, I'm not into parrying, but it works when it works, and it worked in this game, so I dug it. All right, let's get into the cons. I thought the pacing started out pretty weak. You have your motivation, right? Vernal wants to kill her dad. That's pretty strong motivation, I suppose. Very interesting. The game starts out with info gathering, and that's just, it seems directionless. It's not entirely intriguing or fun. And each kind of time you get info, it also comes with some conveniently found thing that just so happens that if you put it all together, it, will advance the plot, right? So that just seemed a little contrived, but it's really not that big of a deal, especially when after you do the info gathering and crap, the latter part of the game is then just like a big MacGuffin fetch quest, which, easier to kind of like identify with. Now it's like, oh, okay, so now I just got to find all these things so I can do this thing. Yeah, totally. Got it. Bam. So yeah, the pacing starts out a little slow, but it picks up eventually. The next con I have here is tanky enemies and poise. This goes back to combat. Remember how I said combat is fun until it isn't? This is why, because in order to have the juggling mechanic really be effective, they had to make the enemies tanky. And so I feel like every encounter in the game takes way too long, because these enemies are just, they have so much HP, and then they have these poise balls, I suppose, and only certain attacks will get rid of their poise. Like, I think it's like the end of your combo, and like magic. And now this is on me, because I'm not a big magic user. I'm a very, very much a combat guy. So whenever there comes to like magic abilities, they're always not even in the back of my mind. I don't know where they go. I just hardly ever use them. So maybe if I used my magic abilities more, then the fights probably wouldn't have felt as long. But I don't know, man. I just think even if I used those abilities, some of these fights would be overlong. My next concern is not only are these enemies like super tanky, but there's just only a few of them. Like, I would say there's probably 10 to 12 enemies in this game. There may be more than that, but not by a lot. So you'll get bored pretty quickly. Another thing I really hated about combat was every time you got hit, you had to press the jump button to get back up. That just annoyed the crap out of me. It brought a lot of the combat to a crawl. And I don't know. I don't see how it really helped make the combat better. I don't know. And a big issue I had with the game, and I know you guys probably saw this coming, is this: there's no multiple endings. There's only one ending, and it's fine, but the game lends itself to have multiple endings. Like, spoilers, sorry y'all, but basically she kills her dad in the end, right? So that's the objective. I want to kill my dad, and in the end she kills him. I would like to have had the option to not kill him, or find something within the environment, discover something, whatever, to save him if that needed to happen, or I don't know, just anything to where I had more than just one ending. The game just perfectly set itself up to go off the rails with this kind of like reality, unreality plot device that's going on in this other, I don't know, dimension or whatever. It's just, this game could have went just crazy, and it didn't, and it was sad. And I guess my final con, I just put DLC question mark. There's like an area within one of the first towns within the game that you never get access to. I never got access to it. I looked it up. No one's gotten access to this area. And I think it's because there's a possibility of DLC coming down the line. I have no idea, but at this point, it's kind of like, have y'all played Katana Zero? It's not a Metroidvania, but it's like one of my favorite games of all time. There's like this elevator in this one spot where it's like, yeah, DLC's coming, and they're still working on the DLC to this day. And God bless them. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be fantastic. That's how I kind of felt with this area in Vernal Edge. I got to this and again, it's really early in the game. It's like, nah, there's a barricade, we can't let you through. And it's like, well, I want to know what's back there, but maybe it's DLC. I don't know. And because it's so nebulous right now, I'm like, you know what? You're going into the cons. And so I did. And so now we've come to where we would place it on the tier list. I would say I'm going to put it above Moonscars. It's an average Metroidvania, just a little above average, because I did like the combat until I didn't, right? And it does a lot of Metroidvania things right, except for that multiple ending, where I really wanted to pay off exploration more, and it didn't reach those heights for me. So there you go. Yeah, it's low B, just barely above average. It's definitely worth checking out if you like Metroidvanias. You should definitely play it. Just know it's not the greatest, but it is good. And last on this episode, but certainly not least, we have Death's Gambit Afterlife. I'm going to be real with you all. Death's Gambit Afterlife might be one of my favorite Metroidvanias of all time. In fact, after doing some research and refreshing for this episode, I started playing it again, and I'll probably be making a video of it soon, so stay tuned to that. So that leads us to why I would like Death's Gambit so much. And I'm not going to lie to you, I got a lot of pros here, but I'm going to try to make it as brief as possible because I actually do want to dive deeply into this game with an upcoming video. What I'll say out the gate is that this game nails Metroidvania aspects. I'm talking combat and abilities, exploration, progression, atmosphere, narrative, all of it. There's different classes in the game, although, to be quite honest, even though I like the game so much, I've only ever played as Death's Acolyte, so I couldn't even tell you about the other classes. I don't know, I'm just not like a RPG class kind of guy. I like one thing and I just kind of stick to it. I don't know, it's just how I am. The combat is really, it's good, it's fine. I know some people might think it's better. Like, it's not my favorite aspect of the game, but it does what it has to do, right? You can hit, you can jump, you can dodge, you can block, you can parry. There's abilities you can use. It's pretty much all there. The ability gating moves that you get are pretty standard. You got your double jump, you got a stomp, again, the air dash, and then you can get like an infinite double jump if you grab a flower, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's not gonna blow your mind. Exploration in the game is a whole lot of fun. You're constantly finding stuff, making it super rewarding, like gear, items, crafting materials, shortcuts. I mean, it's all there. And it's pretty standard, and I get that. And you're thinking, wow, why does he like this game so much? I'll get to that, I promise. But again, it when it comes to exploration, it does everything that it needs to do. My one critique about the exploration, and it's in the cons, is that I feel like the map is kind of messy. Like, there's not a whole lot of looping back onto itself, and you have that Rider's Pass that just goes through every biome. I don't know, it's not my favorite. It's not terrible, but it does make the map look kind of messy. Then we have the atmosphere of the game, which I like the atmosphere a lot. The music's fantastic. The overall presentation's really good. I like the colors that are used. I like the biomes and how things look in that respect. And the biomes can get really interesting. It starts out like a really nice kind of mountainy area. Then you get to the sanctuary spot, and then you get more colder mountainy area, and then there's a fiery area. I mean, it's all pretty much standard. It's just hitting what it needs to hit to be a good Metroidvania. Where the game really kind of shines for me is in its narrative. That's where it's at. And we'll get to that in a second, but I just want to like finish up with progression. That's another really big thing that Metroidvanias need to nail, and I think they did a really good job here in Death's Gambit. It has that progression system that's ripped off straight from Dark Souls. And you'll hear that a lot about this game. This is the 2D Dark Souls. Like, it's like a complete ripoff of Dark Souls in a lot of aspects. And it's really tough to disagree with that critique or that comment, because it is. But I mean, here's the thing though. Isn't Dark Souls great? I'm cool with there being a 2D Metroidvania Dark Souls. And so, yeah, they completely rip off that progression system. You get, I don't even know what it's called in this game. What is the currency called in this game? Are they called souls? They're probably called souls. I don't know. You kill enemies and you collect souls. You take those souls to the bonfire. In this game, it's like a shrine of death, and then you level up stats, right? And each stat does a different thing, just like it does in Dark Souls. You know, strength does strength builds. Finesse is like your dex. There's HP, there's stamina, stuff like that. Again, pretty standard stuff when it comes to leveling, especially when it comes to like a Soulsvania. But again, Death's Gambit does it really well. Dark Souls level progression system translates incredibly well to a Metroidvania venue. And there's a lot of customization that goes into your character in Death's Gambit, just like it does in Dark Souls. You get gear. Gear comes with its own stats and stat increases. You can only equip certain gear if you have a specific prerequisite hit, like you want to have like a great sword, well, you better have a lot of strength, right? Again, not a whole lot new here. It's just getting translated from Dark Souls into Death's Gambit or to a 2D Metroidvania plane. It works. I love it. And if it's something where it's like, wow, I can't believe it ripped off so much from Dark Souls, the game is very self-aware that it's doing that, and it doesn't care, and I don't care, and I hope you wouldn't care either. Just enjoy it for what it is. Now, where the game truly shines is its narrative. The game definitely has an X factor in a lot of different ways. So I guess many X factors. I'd say my favorite thing about the narrative is all the surprising turns throughout. It starts out as a fantasy game, and then all of a sudden you're fighting a cyborg with a sniper rifle. And I absolutely love when fantasy and sci-fi mix, but it goes even beyond that. You eventually get cosmic horror added to the mix, and that's when it just starts blowing my mind, man. And that leads me to my next point, and basically my pro just says Thalamus. Thalamus is this game's big bad, but you don't really know that at first. And the things that he does to screw with the player and the game and everything is just absolutely fantastic. And I don't want to dive too deeply into everything that Thalamus does, but my next point is meta-ness, and Thalamus absolutely messes with the game's meta. I don't want to dive too deeply into Thalamus because there's a lot to talk about there. Just know that he's really cool. And this leads to our next point, meta-ness. The way Thalamus screws with the player and the title screens and all the other menus, it's all really, really good fun. And then there's the will stat, and I think that's the one that blew my mind the most. You have this will stat in your stat menu. You got strength, you got intelligence, endurance, blah, blah, blah. And then at the bottom, you have will at 100, and you're like, what the heck is this? The game never really tells you, but it kind of gives you a hint. When you're going to save, there will be a little blurb at the bottom left of the screen that tells you what the will kind of does. And it's so easy to overlook because I'm sure players always overlook these kind of load screen texts. But yeah, the game outright tells you that will is important and it's doing something. You don't know what, and you find out later, but it's kind of cool that hint is there the entire game. It's just amazing. There's other meta-ness to the game, like the whole observer thing at the beginning with Death, talking to the player, and then there's this whole ARG thing that happened that I wasn't a part of because I didn't play the game till this was already over, but this led to a secret boss and a secret biome and all kinds of crap. It's really cool to look back at. It's not something that I'm going to touch on, even probably in my video, because there's so many other people that go into it, and there's a lot into it as well, and so I might mention it, but yeah, it was really cool. I love ARGs. I just don't really like to participate in them. I just like to hear about them. The next pro I have here is the path to the true ending. I thought the path to the true ending in this game was really, really well done. To get the true path, you got to do a crap ton of exploration, as well as figure out what that will stat actually does. There's an NPC that kind of shows up to kind of nudge you in the right direction about getting these heroic things done, these heroic fights that you got to do with these bosses. Because every time you kill a boss, you can fight them again, but they're heroic now, and and they're much more difficult. And the way that plays into the will stat and what the will stat really means and what it means moving forward with the game with Thalamus and Death, it's just really, really awesome. And then there's like a big twist reveal with it and stuff, and it's just, I don't want to get into it here because it really is special and it's awesome. You should really check it out. This entire game is just really cool. But I'm just going to move on now to the humor in the game. I don't know, much like Batbarian, humor worked in this game. The game has a very serious tone and there's a lot of serious subject matter in it, but for some reason the humor works, and it's really silly humor too. It's like, here's Death as a chef in this kitchen with all these little like guys. It's just really weird. There's a lot of other humor around how Death will make fun of you every time you die because you're immortal. He just brings you back and he'll say all kinds of funny things. I really like that too. My next bullet point here for pros has to do with the boss fights and the heroic boss fights. Kind of talked about that already, but I do like the boss fights in this game. Some of them can be very challenging, especially with the heroic boss fights and especially with New Game Plus. In fact, the game is pretty challenging overall. I don't remember struggling too much on some things, but some of these boss fights, they had some spice to them, I'll tell you. The last bullet point I have here is Redemption Arc. I have it as Afterlife Patch, but I guess it's more technically an expansion. I don't want to speak a whole lot on this because I didn't play Death's Gambit until the Afterlife expansion, so I don't really have a lot to say before this expansion. But apparently, prior to the Afterlife expansion, I guess Death's Gambit was not very good. People just thought the controls were kind of lame. They weren't very responsive. They thought the narrative was too rushed or didn't really go anywhere. I don't know. There's just a lot of complaints about it, and so I guess the complaints were so bad that White Rabbit, who's the dev of Death's Gambit, decided to create an expansion and let it out for free, right? So they created the Afterlife expansion and gave it away for free for everyone who already bought the game, which I thought was super classy. And again, I didn't play Death's Gambit prior to this expansion. I've only ever played Afterlife, and I have no complaints. Again, I told you, it's one of my favorite Metroidvanias of all time, and I'm glad to hear that a lot of other people share that sentiment with me. And I guess it all stems back to the fact that the developers were like, you know what? We released a product, people aren't happy with it. We want to make the best thing that we can possibly make. And so apparently they did. And I'm glad they did because, God, it's such a very fantastic game. But even with all that praise, I'm going to move on to the cons now. I don't have a whole lot of cons on here, but I do have some cons. First one I already talked about. The map was kind of messy. There's very little interconnectivity and everything just kind of feels isolated. And this can make backtracking a big old pain. Eventually you do unlock fast travel, but it's like mid-game or something. And the in-game map doesn't really have a whole lot of markers that you can do. I mean, you can open up the in-game map and you can drop a marker somewhere, but it's like very elementary. You can drop one type of marker and that's it. There's nothing else you can do. Like, you take a look at, say, like the newest Blasphemous, right? You can drop all kinds of markers. Like, this is a baby marker. This is a question mark marker. This is a treasure chest marker, whatever. But yeah, the marker system in this game is not the best. The next con I have here is the true ending. I do like the path to the true ending, and I thought the true ending was fantastic. As a matter of fact, the final boss fight actually had me like pumped. It was a very cliche kind of anime-esque type of thing that happens during this boss fight, but I don't care. I freaking loved it. But yeah, you finish this boss fight, and then there's a little bit more ending after that. Like, there's not more game, but there's more ending. And so essentially it just feels over long. Like, I don't know. I'd rather have there be like an epilogue or something, but this was like, more conflict, right? And then I don't know. I'm trying not to spoil it, but the post-fight part of the ending just felt like, okay, there's more. Why is this? I don't know. It didn't really hit too well with me. But everything before that point was done really well. But here's the thing that really grinds my gears, and I don't say that term very often, but I'm going to say it here because it really pissed me off, is that there's DLC for this game that sets up for the sequel and answers some lingering questions when it comes to like this character named Ash and stuff, and with some like antagonists that have been in the background called the Eldritch Hand or something like that. And the fact that this is like an $8 DLC that does that just really irked me. I know there's more to the DLC. I think there's like a boss rush. I don't even remember. I don't really care because I'm not paying money to get like even more ending. I found that to be kind of absurd. And I get it, they probably did it to supplement the expansion pack that they released to make this game actually really good, but it doesn't mean I have to buy it. I just YouTubed it. Because I'm a terrible person. And then my last con here has to do with combat, and it really has to do with the skill tree and the abilities and the perks that you can unlock in the skill tree. A lot of them kind of suck. Like, don't get me wrong, they're helpful and they can be used to great effect, But there's so many like weird perks that are like, if you do the stomp move, then you unlock 3% damage for the next 5 swings or something like that. And you know, I don't know. It's really weird. Like if you do an air dash through a fireball, your arrows do +2 damage. Now, of course, that's stupid. I'm being hyperbolic, but you get it. It's like a lot of these perks are conditional. And it's just like, I can't remember all this crap. And then like, as you're actually doing combat, you'll activate some of these perks and then they show up in the top right of the screen. And you're like, what the hell does that do again? Whatever. Yeah, it just, I don't know. I would like my perks to be more streamlined, I suppose. They just were just all over the place. And I just couldn't remember everything. It's like, well, if I do a stomp, I can then have fire damage for my sword or something. I don't know. It got convoluted and weird, and I just stopped paying attention to it. All right, and that brings us to where would I put Death's Gambit Afterlife on to the tier list here. Not gonna lie to you, it's gonna be S, and I'm not gonna say it's better than Blasphemous. Blasphemous is just so freaking good. Is it better than Ender Lilies? Oh man. See, this is really tough because Ender Lilies is like one of my personal favorites of all time. But I think Death's Gambit just does the Metroidvania aspects better. Because like the true ending to like Ender Lilies is kind of lame. It's cool. It's a great ending, but like getting it is just kind of dumb. You just like get an ability to unlock doors and you find tablets. It's not my favorite, but man, Death's Gambit's true path and its actual endings and the meta-ness, and then like this whole like everything just kind of makes sense, you know, with the narrative where it's like, here we are with fantasy, sci-fi, then cosmic horror, and why is the game even called Death's Gambit? And then you figure it out and you're like, man, this is awesome. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it above Ender Lilies, which hurts my heart a little bit, but I think that's where it needs to go. And there we have it, boys. We have another episode down. That's 5 more Metroidvanias onto the list. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. Again, I can always amend where I put things if the argument for the movement is sound and logical. But I think everything's starting to come around pretty nicely. Yeah, I think I'm liking this list so far. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I'll see you all next month with the next 5 Metroidvanias. I don't know what they are yet. I'll figure it out when I get to the picker. But until then, see ya.